Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. Today is a very, very rare occasion, a special day. We are going to be pulling some shards, and I did not expect to be doing this so soon, but I did talk about this over the weekend during 2x Voids, where I ended up skipping it. I did a shardless champion chase for that session in order to preserve my Void Mercy, which we'll take a look at in a second, but I was saying that I was waiting for an opportunity to get either Marichka or Queen of Hearts, and lo and behold, right here during CVC the following week, we have an opportunity to get Queen of Hearts. So we get to shoot our shot and see if we can get ourselves Queen of Hearts from our guaranteed Void Legendary by hitting Mercy. So in this case, it is the middle of the week, so there is no champion chase and or summon rush going on right now, as you'd expect, but it just so happens that it's featuring my #1 most wanted Void Legendary at the moment. Maybe we'll go through her kit if we happen to pull her. And yeah, this is the goal for the day. Now, if anyone's curious that for the math behind this, the 15x chance on a Void Legendary is roughly around a 17% chance to proc, so slightly less than 1 in 5. I guess it's really close to 1 in 6. So when we get our Void Legendary, again, it's guaranteed because we're going all the way out to Mercy. We have a 1 in 6 chance that it will be Queen of Hearts, but unfortunately, when you flip that around, that does mean that there's an 83% chance that we'll get anyone else from the Void Legendary pool. So the odds are definitely against us, but nonetheless, we're going to shoot our shot and see what happens. So in terms of the overall shard count, my account, while we're here in the portal, might as well take a look at it. 540 on the Ancients, 277 on the Voids, 60 on the Primals, and then 47 on the Sacred, and of course we'll be dipping into the Voids for today. I've already mentioned it a couple of times, but let's take a look at my Mercy tracker here, which if you want a copy of this to use for yourself, the link for that is in the description box down below. But the main thing to highlight here, of course, is the Void shard section here, where we are 54 shards away from entering Mercy, and then you have the extra 20 increasing up until the guaranteed at 220 summons. So absolute worst case, we'd have to pull 74 Voids to guarantee ourselves a Void Legendary. I anticipate we're not going to necessarily need to go all the way out to 220, so maybe 60 to 70 Voids should probably do it, just from a practical probability standpoint. And also in my private version of the spreadsheet, I have been tracking literally every single Void shard that I've ever pulled, so a grand total of around 1,300, plus whatever we pulled today, of course. And you can see that historically, we've had some good instances of relatively low legendaries popping out. You have 4, you have 19, 19, 30, 30, but I have hit Mercy 1, 2, 3 times, and this will be the 4th time in my career, in nearly 5 years of playing the game, that I will have gone all the way out to Mercy, meaning that we pulled 200 plus, or potentially pulled, we'll have to see, but potentially pulled 200 plus Void shards to get, or to guarantee, or to get a legendary champion. And if you want some additional details about the history behind these numbers, I actually did a full breakdown after I had pulled roughly 1,000 Voids, and you can check out that video up in the card above. Now, there is no 2x going on right now, so that means we're going to see a lot of Void rares, but hopefully we can get some Void epics along the way, and the ones I'm looking for most are Whisper, because I'd like a duplicate copy of her for empowerment, but also I'd like to run a double Whisper comp in the Phantom Shogun's Grove. I think that would just be kind of fun to do, channeling my inner Saf. And then I also, for some reason, I've never ever pulled the duplicate of Inquisitor Shamail. He's still a base, not plus or not empowered at all, so I'd like to at least get one copy of him. And same thing for Basher as well. I like to empower my Basher. Of course, when it comes to legendaries, we do want to focus our RNG on the meager 70% chance to get the Queen of Hearts. And in addition, I actually get to test out this new feature they added somewhat recently. You can see I'm kind of capped, so to speak, on space. I have a lot of champions that are waiting in the wings for the champion training tournament or event that starts in a couple of days for the purposes of the ongoing fusion. So we're going to be summoning directly to the reserve vault and testing out that feature. I have tons and tons, 600 spaces in that in the reserve vault, so we have plenty of room to handle 70-ish Void shards. So without further ado, let's get into the shard pools. We've got tons of reserve space, we've got tons of cash, and hopefully we can channel our RNG right here for my #1 most wanted Void Legendary in the game, the Queen of Hearts. So let's get it cracking here, starting off with the first 10 pop. Now, one thing that is somewhat important to keep in mind here is that as we approach Mercy, there's still the 0.5% chance that we just randomly get a legendary along the way, but the goal here is that we're going all the way out to Mercy no matter what to guarantee ourselves a Void Legendary from this session. So from the first 10 here, we have Tolf the Memed, which I do actually use. He is my Enfeeble tank in the Phantom Shogun's Grove, which I talked about that team already, and so this is more empowerment for him, so he's going to be a little bit more tanky. And then Isla Lifebraid, she's pretty decent-ish. She has like a Relentless-esque passive where you can get extra turns across your team, but I've never personally used her myself. But Tree Shield Knot, honorable mention, one of the best Void rares in terms of, or I think the best Void rare reviver in the entire game. I used him for a long time in Faction Wars, but he was replaced by the lovely Elva Autumnborn, as you might suspect, in terms of the reviver for that faction here. Well, this is looking like a bunch of blues, but again, we talked about that. There is no 2x going on, so we're going to see very, very low epic rates, and of course, the legendary rate is super low as well. So this is par for the course to be expected, but notable that we have a Justicar and a Huntress, which can be used for a future, potentially a future Relic Keeper and or Broadmaw. Let's keep it going here. This will be 30 voids in, so we're not yet on the hot shards. We're still in the raw odds of the 0.5% chance. Gear Grinder, another honorable mention for the most accessible reviver for the Ogren tribes, as sad as it is to admit that. But Demitha, very popular for the unkillable teams, the 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio. The Myth-Fu, the Myth-Air, all those types of teams, super good for that purpose. I don't use her for that on personally, but nonetheless, she's great for that. And then Renegade, everyone's favorite budget 2-turn reset champion. However, if you got Donatello recently during his fusion, I think he's a direct upgrade or replacement for anyone's Renegade in your teams. Another Renegade, another Gear Grinder, lots and lots more rares. I think I'm starting to lose track here, but I think we're 40-ish shards in here. Another set of all blues. Bloodhorn, another champion for another fusion champion for Broadmaw, so we'll take that. That's good for the future. So I think we're on the 5th 10 pop here. Cold Heart, still one of the best rares in the game for PvE content. I still use her in a couple of areas. She's kind of fallen off. Obviously, single target enemy max HP is not as strong as multi-hit, Marius and Newts and whatnot. So she's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit, but there are key fights where she is still important, where turn meter suppression is the meta. Reliquary Tender, another honorable mention for a Void Rare Reviver. Great for Cleanser. I still run her against the Nether Spider, believe it or not, in a lovely relentless set. Here we go. Whisper. Yes. Awesome. That is my well, I already have a +2 on my Whisper, but I specifically wanted to get a third. The third one is going to be used as a duplicate. Oh, wait, hold on. The legendary. Whoa, that's not Gueen of Hearts, but it is Arnorn the Shining. Okay, that is arguably better. I don't know how I feel about that, though, because as you might have seen in my video released earlier today, I'm not a huge fan of Stone Skin, using Stone Skin, but nonetheless, this is more of a kind of a break in case of emergency, or emergency Stone Skin to save his life. But wow, Arnor the Shining is not what I expected to pop out of the legendary proc here. But quickly going through his kit, 2-hitter or a double hitter on the A1, it damage increases for each buff on the target, and each hit also has a 50% chance to stun, so that can be pretty decent as well. The A2 is another single target double hitter ability, but the damage inflicted increases for each by 10% for each 10% HP this champion has lost. So the lower health he is, obviously that synergizes with his passive, keeping him alive at 1 HP. And then if the targets are under 2 or more buffs, it will ignore 35% of the target's defense, which is meant to be the case because he's meant to be a champion who can survive until the end. Your enemy does a bunch of buffs and sets the table for him to murder the entire team, more or less, from what I've seen. But this will also grant an extra turn if he kills an enemy on a 3-turn cooldown. Super good for that one. But this is the main event here. This ability, this AoE, hits like an absolute truck. It will ignore increased defense, strengthen, and shield buffs. So these buffs will do nothing for you to protect you or minimize the damage you take, which is part of why he hits so hard, especially against like a Siphi or an Ankora and stuff like that. And then if this attack kills at least one enemy, it will decrease the turn meter of all enemies by 50%, and that effect cannot be resisted. Very, very easy to do, especially when you add in the primary part of the passive, which is that it increases his attack by 5% for each active buff on the enemy team. So that will count for each buff individually on anyone on your team if he's on the enemy, or anyone on the enemy team if he's on your team, stacking up to 100%. So you can double his attack before he even does an attack, which is absolutely devastating. And again, keep in mind that he'll typically lead off with this ability, which will ignore increased defense, strengthen, and your shields. So none of that will help protect you from damage. But of course, the most annoying part of his passive is that it prevents his death, keeps him alive at 1 HP when you try it when he gets a fatal hit. It will place Stone Skin on him for 1 turn, and then it will instantly activate the AoE. So basically, or practically speaking, he will do this when you try to kill him, and then, if anyone is still alive, he will get his turn. He's under Stone Skin. You can't really do anything about that. And then he will use this AoE again, so he does this twice with however much attack he's gained from the primary part of the passive, and he will absolutely decimate your team. And of course, being a Void guide champion, he cannot, or you don't have to worry about weak hits. So yeah, this guy is definitely super meta right now because he has one of the most annoying passives in the game. However, I typically deal with him using my Mezamel because she can ignore Stone Skin and it's a double hitter. So the first hit will proc the passive and put Stone Skin on, and then her second hit will just kill him because she ignores Stone Skin. So that's kind of my answer to Arnorns or anyone who ignores Stone Skin, but you will need them to have 2 hits. Or of course you can try, if he's not in Stone Skin himself, you can definitely block his passive with like a Carnage or a Ramontu or something like that, and then you can not have to worry about his passive killing your entire team. So I guess RNGs has wanted me to shut up about my proposal for my Whisper team in Phantom Shogun's Grove, but nonetheless I do plan to build a second Whisper and use her for that team. And then I'll highlight Padma as well. She's a fairly unique champion who, as long as she can crit on the A1 here, she will place an AoE decrease attack, which is similar to Maneater, who has a similar ability here. And this is a great ability just to have against like the Eternal Dragon, because you can have her get locked out on everything else and all she has to do is A1. And even if she attacks one of the minions, it will place AoE decrease attack for 2 turns whenever she A1s. And of course, your A1 is on a 1 turn effectively cooldown or no cooldown at all. And so you can always spam the A1 to keep decreased attack out there for 2 turns on a regular consistent basis. So super strong if you're struggling in fights like that, the Eternal Dragon. But since I kind of lost track a little bit here, let's see. So I started at 277 and then we pulled 60 voids, which does mean, yes, we did enter Mercy there on the last 10 pop. So I was a little behind the curve there, but yeah, we were 54 shards away from Mercy. So 60, the last 6 shards were hot shards, so to speak. And so we were in Mercy for that. So that is indeed confirmed a Mercy proc, the 4th Mercy proc on my account, and we definitely got rewarded for it. Not with the exact reward that I wanted, but I am not going to sit here and complain about an Arnorn the Shining. Well, at this point, I think that is going to do it for today's video. I don't really have much more to say on this. I am definitely super happy to have one of the best meta arena champions in the game, and I guess I've continued my streak of my Void Legendary quality being extremely high, despite not having all that many overall. But yeah, we have one of the most popular, legendary meta champions, let's say, because obviously there's a lot of meta mythical champions. But after a little bit more thought, I think I will allow myself to use Arnorn the Shining. I'll probably build him relatively slow, actually, kind of to take advantage of the passive as it is worded, at least. I don't think you necessarily need him to be super fast, although that could work. But I don't know. I'll have to see, what gear is free to put on him for usage in certain situations. But yeah, I mean, he could definitely be a threat. At the very least, he could be another, ban bait champion for my account at the very least. So I may not get to use him as much in like live arenas where I'm always thinking of. But he might be scary enough that people want to ban him instead of someone else on my roster that I would like to use instead. So we'll kind of see. I guess part of the content for this upcoming stream on Saturday will be building this guy out and maybe testing him out, maxing him out, depending upon where I'm at with the champion training event. So yeah, that is going to do it for today's special shard pull session. I do expect that majority of the player base doesn't usually pull shards during CVC, and I myself am in that group as well. This is a one-off situation because of my proximity to Mercy. But if you did happen to pull, let me know if you happen to get anything good from your summons as well. As always, if you did enjoy this video, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel. And also feel free to hit the subscribe button down below if and only if you are enjoying the content overall on this channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching and have a good one.